Hi, welcome to Talkback. It's September 15th, 2025, and we are in the middle of election season for local candidates. I know a lot of people in Connecticut don't realize that on the odd numbered years we vote in our local elections. And in the municipal elections, one of the sad things that I'm going to talk to my guests about is that we get such a low rate of participation. Why is that when everything about your life has more importance on the local level, right? Your streets, your schools, your lights, your culture, your activities, your roads. I mean, I don't get it, but we'll figure it out. So today we have three people who are running for the Board of Finance in the town of Colchester. So I want to introduce first Krista Cardis. Hi, Krista.
Hi.
Hi, good to see you.
Thank you for having us.
Okay, you're welcome. And Sean Gillespie.
Hello, how you doing, Sheila?
Okay. And then we have Miss Vinci. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Vinci. So all three of you are running for positions. Now, can all three of you be elected on the ticket? Because I know there are rules about how many people are on a Board of Finance. How does that work? Tell us.
We all can be elected for the Board of Finance. Currently, there are, let me think about that, 6 members on the Board of Finance. I was voted in by the board in December of 2024 when somebody else had to leave the board.
So you got as a result of a vacancy, not the
Yes,
regular election
correct.
process.
But currently there are 6 of us, 4 Democrats, 2 Republicans, including myself. There are 2 other vacancies as we have 2 board members who are stepping down after serving long term. So we could all be voted in.
Okay, so when I go to the polls, how many people do I vote for Board of Finance?
So there's 2 separate positions. Jillian and I are up for the 6-year seats for Board of Finance, which is a different term length than the other term that Krista is running for. Krista is running for the 4-year term. So when you are presented with the ballot, there will actually be 2 separate slots, Board of Finance 6 years, Board of Finance 4 years, and you will see each of us in our corresponding boxes for those.
So I can vote for one person for the 4-year term, and I can vote for 2 people for the 6-year term?
Correct.
So all 3 of you can get elected?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, let me ask again, before we get into your individual histories and reasons why you want to run and what you can do for the town, let me ask you to describe, Jillian, what does a Board of Finance do in a town? It's a very, very important body, right?
Yes. So the Board of Finance in the town of Colchester, we oversee all of the budgets. So specific to the town, we have purview over line item budgets. So we work throughout the year, to make sure that budgets stay on track, to anything that the Board of Selectmen might need to receive financing for will be voted on with the Board of Selectmen, is then passed to the Board of Finance. But part of our budgeting season is that we spend many months reviewing all of the budgets that are put forth through the town and the department heads, and then also the Board of Education. So our purview on the Board of Education is total budget, so we don't have line item control, but we do receive, thanks to our wonderful partners on the Board of Education, we do receive a very detailed budget each year, and that we're able to have many meetings with the experts for each of the different areas to talk about budget, to ask questions, and then put together what we think will be an appropriate budget for the town. And then once it's voted on, we can bring that to referendum.
Okay. So there are 2 separate budgets that the townspeople are going to vote on. One is the selectmen, that's the first selectman, and then the others on the board. And then there's a Board of Education budget, right?
Yes.
And nothing is going to get paid out in Colchester until the Board of Finance approves or gets set to bring the proposed budget for both the education and the selectmen to the town. The town meeting has to pass it, right?
Yes.
And then finally it has to go to a full vote or referendum where people have to come out to the polls or vote by absentee or however, but they have to vote for it at the end of the year. So that's a lot of work during the course of a year.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
We start budgeting in January
Right.
for a July 1st.
And of course, Sean, you're always jockeying because there's never enough money for education, right? I mean, that's like a principle. Everybody wants more money to be spent for better education for the students in our community. But there's only so much that you can do. So talk about that. There's the push and pull of different groups advocating for one thing or another, whether it's sports or culture or art. We don't want to miss anything, but something's going to have to wait. How does that work?
Well, ultimately, that is the job of the Board of Finance. If you go to the Board of Finance's page on the Town of Colchester's website, the mission statement you'll see is balancing the needs of the town with the ability to pay. So the cause that the Board of Finance takes up is we have to review everything being spent, future needs, current needs, and figure out, can the town pay for these? And if when we approve things and send them to the town meeting, like the yearly budgets, that is us saying, we can pay for this year, we have everything that we need. We've reviewed revenue, we've reviewed our grand list, we've reviewed all these factors that come into budget season, and we say, we can do that this year. This budget is responsible, and that's when we pass it on to the town meeting.
But you could also make a determination that people are going to pay more taxes for more services or less taxes, or to keep it the same. How does that work, Krista?
Well, that is the job of the Board of Finance, to bring the most accurate and complete information to the taxpayers. What is the condition of our town finances? What do we need for building maintenance? A lot of kicking the can down the road has occurred in the past, and it's created situations where we suddenly have to pay for things that may be more expensive, especially post-COVID. A lot of things have become way more expensive than if we had just had a better plan for maintaining our buildings, our fleet of vehicles. So it's having a better plan for the community, a better financial plan, which I think has occurred under the new administration.
Okay.
And going forward, it's hard to make the decision to raise taxes. We need to be good stewards of the taxpayers' money. But I think if we come to the taxpayers with complete and accurate information and explain to them the reasons why we need to make certain investments or expenditures, I think then it goes over a little bit more smoothly.
Okay, so there are always priorities, and we know that in the last couple of years under the new administration, the budgets have passed. Whereas in prior years, there has always been a lot of dissension, a lot of difficulty, a lot of, do we really know what the economic facts are? Are we getting all the right numbers, right? Mm-hmm. In the last few years, under the current administration, I think there's been an effort to streamline things, to get things right, and it shows in the fact that we've been able to pass the budgets. So let's talk about each of you. Krista, why do you want to run? It's not easy. We live in an age where public figures are constantly being barraged, sometimes threatened. God forbid that would never happen in our small town, but who knows? Things are tough out there in the world of politics. So why do you want to run?
Well, I'm currently an elected official on the Board of Assessment Appeals, and I have greatly enjoyed that. My background is in nursing. I've been a nurse in Connecticut for 32 years. So I've never backed down from a tough career path. I think it's very important, especially in our local government, to put yourself out there and be a part of the answers help to make a path forward that's better for our citizens, to make a better quality of life, whether it's financial or wellness. So I've decided that going to the Board of Finance to have a greater impact on our community is something that I'm very interested in doing.
Okay, so I see here that you've been on the Board of Assessment Appeals. You were an EMT volunteer for other towns in past years before you came to Colchester. You graduated with a degree in nursing, and you've been a registered nurse for a long time,
Yeah.
right? And you've been in Colchester for 30 years, and the Vice President of the Bacon Academy Project graduation 2017, 18, and 22. And a member of the Lions Club Board of Directors. That's just some of the volunteer things that you've done. So what experience or understanding do you have of, as Jillian was saying, and Sean, the financial things that you kind of need to understand to be able to be on the Board of Finance and help make those decisions?
Yeah, certainly. And as you read down my bio, I don't have the background in finance, but my nursing career has, I think, set me up very well for a position on the Board of Finance. One of my positions in nursing was working in the Colchester Elementary School as the school nurse. So I had to deal with a budget and make sure that department ran efficiently. I am, in all along my career, I've had to weigh risk benefit, get certain data, ask appropriate questions, utilize my critical thinking skills to make good determinations so that I can so that my patients have a good outcome. I feel it's the same with the Board of Finance. It's collecting data, asking the right questions, getting the right information, and ultimately making the best determination to have the best outcome for our citizens.
Okay, great. So Sean, let's go to you. You've been the treasurer of the town now for the last 2 years, and now you are going to be running for the Board of Finance. Tell us a little about your background and why you're making this transition.
Well, as you said, last 2 years I've been the town treasurer, and that's been a phenomenally interesting position to be appointed to.
What did you learn? What did you learn about?
So, I kind of liken it, the analogy I can use for this is it's kind of like a restaurant where back of the house and front of the house, they have to communicate very well in order to make the place succeed. Right now, I would say I'm more on the back of the house. So I'm looking at all the financial operations, reviewing pretty much every transaction the town's had in the past 2 years on a weekly basis, whether that be payroll, whether that be on the Board of Ed side, what they're spending in the cafeteria. Every single transaction is listed on reports that I review every week. I'm looking at those, seeing where all the money's going, seeing if there's any odd transactions. Additionally, I know all the bank accounts, all the signers. I've established great relationships with the banks in town, and I've been doing that for the past couple of years, and it's been interesting there. So where the front of the house analogy comes in is, the maitre d' has to know what's going on in the kitchen, otherwise.
I like your analogy.
Yeah, otherwise you're not going to be able to have a successful restaurant because, if you have VIP customers coming in, something needs to be rushed, you need to know that. And It's the same thing on the Board of Finance side. You need to know what's going on behind the scenes. You need to know where the money's spent. You need to know, next year, how much our salary is going to change next year. Are there any, raises that are going to impact the bottom line? You need to have that information ready to go for budget season. And, I've spent the last 2 years looking at that and, seeing where we could possibly improve, see, where our money is spent on a day-to-day basis. And, honestly, that's probably, for me, one of the most important things you can bring to the table. Because at the end of the day, as Krista mentioned earlier, we're stewards of the taxpayers' funds, and we have to spend them wisely. And to spend them wisely, we got to know where it's going.
So that's great. You've got great experience as the treasurer. So what else in your background kind of prepares you for this and makes you feel like you have the right tools to be on the board?
Well, I've always been a data and numbers person. So, in my professional life, I work in technology. I design, large computer systems for health insurance companies. I've worked for, Department of Defense contractors in the past, primarily doing financial system integrations and medical record integrations. So really what that involves is, you have different sections of a business, or the company purchases another organization, getting everybody on the same page when it comes to your crucial line of business applications, like a financial system.
Okay.
Because everybody's coming in with different ways of doing things, and getting everybody on the same page to talk the same numbers with the same terms, especially when it comes to technology, is important.
Of course, you lean on each other. You have a historical record of someone like Jillian, who's been on the board for a while, and other people who were there longer. And so there are ways of cooperating with each other and learning from each other and getting information as you go along, right? That's
Exactly.
very
Get in the
important.
back of the house, all set up.
And a board has to operate in a hopefully cooperative fashion, which sadly wasn't always the case in Colchester. Somehow Colchester has a reputation of sometimes just not being able to do it right, But maybe things have turned around in these last couple of years. So Jillian, let's go to you. Tell us about yourself and how you came on the board just recently and why you want to continue.
Yes, so my background for work is I have a degree in finance. I've been in the financial industry for the last 25 years. I've been a resident of Colchester for the last 8 years, but as a child was also a resident of Colchester. One of the things that, while I think that I bring a certain level of expertise to the Board of Finance, it was also important for me to join when I saw that there was a vacancy at the end of 2024, because years ago, my husband and I, who are licensed foster parents, we adopted 2 special needs boys.
Oh.
And the Colchester school system has been phenomenal.
Really?
We didn't know when we moved here, for me, moved back here, that we were going to need these type of services. But from the perspective of a parent with special needs children, the Colchester school system has just they've been phenomenal to deal with, and they are wonderful with our boys. And my sons are 4 and 6, and even just seeing the amount of improvements that they've had while being in the school system, it's wonderful. And so when my husband and I spoke about whether or not we could take this on, given our situation at home, we both agreed that, especially after the last elections and knowing that there was going to be potentially a dismantling of the Department of Education, we thought that, my expertise and also my understanding of how our school systems run and operate, it was really important for me to be a part of the fight to make sure that our schools continue to receive the funds that they need to do what they do best.
So your kids stayed in the Colchester system, because some schools who have special need kids send them off to different types of programs. But Colchester was able to fulfill their needs right here.
They were, and my oldest, unfortunately, their birth mother had some issues, and they were both exposed to lead quite a bit in utero. So my oldest son is actually, he has some severe intellectual disabilities, and he's going to be able to stay within the Colchester schools straight through high school, and then extended beyond high school right in town, because we have built such a wonderful program. So it's important for me to make sure that stays in place.
Yeah. So you bring something up that a few years ago we never would have contemplated, that somebody's going to want to destroy the education department in the United States, cut certain kinds of services. Right now we're all sitting on the edge of our seats waiting to see what's going to happen, how it might damage what's going on in Colchester in education and other programs that may be cut. So obviously, Sean, that's something that you guys are going to have to think about as you move forward and deal with, right? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I mean, I have 2 children in the school system as well, and I can echo Jillian's sentiments that the Colchester schools have done a phenomenal job with my kids as well. But we do have to keep apprised of current events and see what's coming at us. I mean, especially even at the state level. I mean, not even talking about the federal level at the Department of Education. We've seen changes in the past 2 years at the state level with ECS funding. Colchester has had one of the largest reductions in the state when it comes to ECS funding.
Explain what that is. It's
So
sharing.
educational cost sharing funding,
Okay.
yes. That is basically the money that the town gets from the state
Right.
on an annual basis. And unfortunately, the past 2 years, there have been 2 large reductions. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of reductions. And that has an immediate impact on our budgets. We're starting from both a property tax and an ECS funding standpoint. We were starting several $100,000 in the red this year before we even opened up a book and before
Right.
we even started looking at the budgets. And we have to be on the ball when it comes to those things. We have to know they're coming. We have to anticipate them. Not only that requires us to be plugged in at the national level, but we really need to talk to our state representatives like Norm Needleman. We have to have those good relationships going forward in order to know those things are coming and to deal with them. And our town fortunately does have good relationships with our representatives, and we've been able to use our connections there to help offset some of the cost on a yearly basis and take advantage of programs and grants on a yearly basis to deal with those several $100,000 of cuts in ECS funding.
Yeah. Oh, so Jillian, you didn't mention that you graduated summa that's the highest you can be.
It
There's
is, yes.
cum laude, there's magna, and there's summa.
Yes.
Summa cum laude from Southern New Hampshire University with a BS in finance.
I did.
Wow.
Yes.
That's
I
fantastic.
graduated with a 4.0 GPA.
Okay, that's wonderful. And you volunteer for Big Brothers Big Sisters. You are an animal rescuer and foster for New England All Breed Rescue. What does that mean, all breed?
So once upon a time, we worked with a rescue out of Massachusetts. So oftentimes with dog rescue especially, you might find that rescuers concentrate on a certain breed.
Certain breeds, okay.
This was all breeds, so
Okay.
whatever needed help.
All right, so you're very active in that world and a volunteer for the Connecticut Humane Society, a liaison to the Fire and EMS Department, and as you said, you've been working in the finance industry for over 25 years, and you've been in Colchester for well over a decade.
Yes.
Great. So we talked about some of the challenges that might come through state and federal. I want to go through your platform because the whole team of Democrats running has put out a platform. And I want to talk about some of them and how the Board of Finance then impacts on that. So for example, the number 1 platform, proven leadership, stable future. We will stand up for Colchester. Maintain fiscal stability and professionalism in our town government. So talk about that.
Yeah, so unfortunately in years prior, there was quite a bit of financial instability in our town in that for several years our regular financial yearly audits were not being completed. So the current administration, that was a major priority, was to make sure that we had a fully staffed financial department, and then also making sure that we got all of those audits done. Because we did not have the audits done, we were on the verge of basically being cut off from funding within the state, put on some...
And your bond rating can go
Absolutely.
down?
The current administration has done such a wonderful job. We have a fantastic bond rating so that we can actually move forward. As we saw example with the senior center, we can actually move forward with larger projects that we need to do to keep Colchester a great town.
Okay, so you're referring to the brand new senior center that just opened this year,
Yes.
basically. Okay, number 2 on the platform, Sean, keep Colchester affordable by aggressively seeking efficiencies and grant opportunities. How does the Board of Finance work with that one?
Well, there's been a lot of that in the past year even, as evidenced by the most recent referendum that was attached to the town budgets this year. With the water filtration plant off of Cabin Road, it was publicized that 2 of the vessels in that plant were offline and needed some very expensive repairs. Bernie worked with our grant writer on staff to get a grant from the state that made it so the expiring debt service payments that were being done by Public Works were coming off the books, and the cost offset from that grant made it so we could get that project done and not have to pay any additional per month versus what we were paying before for debt service, which is a huge savings. And we need to do more of that to offset a lot of the cuts, a lot of the more increased expenses that we see coming.
I haven't interviewed Bernie yet, but I will. And he's secured $5 million plus in grants for Norton Park, for Lebanon Avenue sidewalk expansion, Airline Trail, Mill Street sidewalk, Bacon Academy HVAC, and so on. And we'll talk, right? So
he's done quite a lot of that, and especially in the case of the water filtration, that had an impact on long-term stability in the town. If we do not have our water system up to date and able to fulfill the capacity that it needs to, we will get a stop order from the state saying you cannot build anymore within the water district there. And getting a project done like that in a cost-effective fashion is crucial towards long-term development, maintaining a good grand list in town and keeping that affordability at a great level.
Okay. Number 3 platform item, Krista, bipartisan collaboration to keep Colchester moving forward. You are a good one to speak about that.
Yeah. Initially, when I came to Colchester, I was affiliated with the Republican Party. I spent most of my time as a Republican in the town of Colchester, and just recently have switched over to the Democratic Party.
Well, at least 2 years ago, because you've been on
yes,
the
exactly.
Board of Assessment.
Exactly. Let's clear that up. Yes, yeah. And I would have to say my memories of campaigns in Colchester and how we treated one another, how we collaborated with one another, was much better than our recent history. Certainly as a voter, I look to both sides to pick the best for the town. Recently, it's become more divisive, and that is, obviously nationally, but that has spilled over into the town. It has spilled over into certain boards, particularly the Board of Finance, where it's, instead of collaboration, sometimes it degrades down into gotcha politics, and that's not productive for the town. It's not fair to the citizens who have elected us to work together to seek solutions, and, like I said before, be good stewards of their tax dollars.
So you noticed a change in the last 2 years, though?
Oh, an immense change,
Okay.
an immense change. I mean, the boards were pretty much, I think, throughout, having difficulties and having challenges and having this divisiveness. Now it's really, with the last election, Bernie coming in and having that platform of bringing Colchester together, has permeated into the boards and how they conduct themselves. We still have some work to do. That's why we're so, I think, passionate to bring that collaborativeness, that togetherness, and continue to infuse it into the Board of Finance.
Okay. How do you feel about that issue, bipartisanship? And that seems to be working better now in Colchester?
Absolutely. I think the Board of Selectmen is, such a great example of a drastic change that's happened in the last 2 years. I remember prior to the 2023 election, there was often a lot of fights. We were in the River East paper quite a bit as a town, and most of it was not good. It was not pleasant. There were all sorts of things happening, and effectively, what came of that was that nobody could work together. The teams couldn't work together, and Colchester, you know, it prevented us from moving forward and getting things done that we needed to. Over the last 2 years, the Board of Selectmen under Bernie, the select people, you know, half Republican, half Democrat, and they've worked together so beautifully. And I think that's just a really, such a testament to the leadership that we have now. And I know without question that we can bring that to all of the boards. I think the Board of Ed has also worked together quite nicely. As Krista mentioned, we do have a little bit more work to do on the Board of Finance, but we can get there.
Okay. So the last 2 years have really been a good example.
Yes.
And you guys hope it's going to continue.
Yes, we
that
will.
Yes, absolutely.
The elections will be similar to the one 2 years ago. Okay.
I'm crossing our fingers on that
Yeah,
one.
okay. So, but it's important that you highlight leadership, and Bernie Denler has done an excellent job.
Yes, he has.
Yes.
Very important. All right. Let's see, Sean, another party platform item is show pride in our town by maintaining public buildings, grounds, and spaces. I know I read Bernie's notes. We want to do a lot more with the athletic field. We want to do more with the youth building. Talk about that.
So yeah, I mean, with the Fields project, and that is not specific to the Fields at Bacon Academy. You know, that is a large component of it, but it also spans to the Recplex as well, with the pickleball courts, with the tennis courts at the Recplex. Basically, Bernie and his team are really trying to make these fields, make our Recplex a showpiece for the town, to show that, you know, we're willing to put the money into making our town an attractive place to be. And, you know, there is a fair amount of re-engineering that has to be done there. You know, the pickleball courts are new, but they are going to be doing post-tension concrete as part of that proposal to ensure that they're around for, you know, 30, 40, 50 years. You know, it's a very much build it once, build it right, you know, so we don't have to build it again type of mentality. And, you know, that's where I've been impressed. Because there is a lot of thought going into this process, whether it be, you know, getting the correct base done at the fields at Bacon Academy, because you know, we all know that the current drainage system isn't up to task. You know, the amount of engineering work, the amount of thought, and you know, the overall product, I think, is going to be a heck of a lot better as a result of that. And you know, that's where I think that pride comes in. You know, if it comes down to the fields at the Recplex with the irrigation projects, we want to get those done right. Every single initiative that I've seen has been put forward with the viewpoint of do it right. And you know, I think we can continue that. I think we can, you know, say that we did this right. It's going to, you know, in the future we won't have to put as much maintenance towards it. If you do it right the first time, you won't have to do it again.
Okay, so you just spoke also to the next item, which is support the Bacon Academy Fields and Athletic Complex restoration projects. That's all combined with the various spaces,
Absolutely.
buildings, and so forth. All right, so Jillian, renovate the youth center, provide a new expanded space for the police department, create a veterans hall. That's that old Bacon Academy building, which used to be the senior center.
The senior center, yes. I mean, while I think we all know that the old senior center was not a usable space, it's still an opportunity for us to expand. I think about the police department. If you've ever been there, it is tiny. And that's just not an appropriate place for a police department of our caliber. So, you know, the fact that Bernie and this administration are really continuing to think about what we need, how do we build. You know, the youth center as well is in a smaller building. There's certainly been some issues going on with that as well, but that's so important to so many families in our town to make sure that, you know, not just for the folks who are living here now, but also for future residents. You know, we're not going to grow as a town if we can't attract people. And you know, I think there's so many things that Colchester does great, and if we can keep that momentum, it's really important. And I know that Bernie is
Okay, so let's see, Krista, another one of the items on the platform, provide fire, EMT, and police with the necessary resources to support public safety. Speak to that one.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Having a background as an EMT, currently my youngest son got his EMT certification and is currently volunteering with our EMS services.
Great.
Our EMS services are vital to the health and wellness of our community, and not just our community, because we do have mutual aid partners. So we're, asked to go to neighboring towns and vice versa. The equipment has to be up to date. We have to maintain our level of personnel, which I know the chief has done an amazing job in recruiting and training. During our door knocking, I did meet with a couple who pointed out that our EMS and fire services are absolutely top notch, and it was just such a joy to hear that. And we're very prideful in them. But we have 2 nursing homes in Colchester. We are a very large town, although we have a small town feel. We are a large town. A lot of residents they do a lot of calls, and they have to be well equipped, and we have to maintain that open dialogue and communication with them, so we can get them what they need when they need it.
Okay, so I just have two more issues. So Jillian, safeguard our green spaces, family farms, and rich history, because there's always that tension between industrializing or keeping the more rural character of your town. So that's an issue that the board deals with all the time.
Yes, absolutely. From my standpoint, one of the great things about Colchester is that we still are a farm town. And while we want to continue to develop where we can, we also don't want to turn Colchester into a town that it is not. We want to make sure that we have beautiful parks, like Norton Park, for instance, that they're expanding on and renovating. But also, as I drive through the town, and frankly, one of the reasons I moved back here was because I wanted to give my future children a place to expand, but also get familiar with animals and agriculture and all of these other things that makes Colchester really special. So it is a delicate balance to make sure that you're moving your town forward, but also holding true to what makes us so special.
Yeah. Okay, and finally, Sean just talked briefly about drive smart growth to create jobs, lower taxes, and enhance local services.
Well, when it comes to affordability and taxes, everything starts and ends with the grand list. And, as I mentioned before, setting up an environment in Colchester where business development is welcomed and balances the needs of keeping the green spaces is part of what we do. And, taxes will, in order to keep taxes reasonable, there has to be a reasonable amount of housing development. Right now, I recently purchased a home myself. There's not a lot of stock out there. So, getting new developments in, getting housing stock, and adding to the ground list only helps everybody when it comes to keeping taxes reasonable. At the same time, we do have new businesses going in. The amount of care that was put into those projects, making sure that we didn't lose that small town charm, we didn't, overburden our roads with traffic. We did traffic studies. The P&Z Commission went over every last detail of the building.
Planning and zoning.
Planning and zoning, yes.
Yeah. I know you're all familiar with these initials, but not everybody.
I know everybody watching may not know what
Too
I'm
many
talking about on that one.
acronyms
So,
in
but
this
yes,
one.
planning and zoning went over. Where we're having the new restaurant and the building has an additional tenant in it as well. They went over every single detail of making sure that architecturally it wasn't going to stand out and be a kind of an eyesore in the town and really not fit the character of the town. So I think on every board and commission in town that we have, there's a lot of careful work going into saying, hey, we need to boost our business environment. We need to responsibly put in more housing options, but at the same time, we can't get rid of why people are here in the first place. You know, I'll echo what Jillian said as well. Part of the reason that I moved back here, well, I didn't move back to Colchester. I'm not originally from Colchester. Part of the reason I moved here was because it reminded me a lot of where I grew up. You know, it was a similar type of town. There was a, you know, main business district. It was largely agricultural, and there was a lot of open space. There was a lot of parks, and that was an environment I loved living in, and that's why I'm here in Colchester now. And, you know, preserving that's going to be important to making it attractive in the future.
Right. So the Board of Finance is numbers and finance and all of that, but it's also having, as you are both saying here, a vision for what the town should be like, and to try to maintain that principle, right, as you go forward. So it's great to have all three of you. I'd like to finish by having each of you just say what you feel you can contribute and what you feel are the biggest challenges that await you when the new term commences. So, Krista?
As a nurse, I always reflect back on this story. This one day that I was a home health nurse, and I was in the town of East Hartford, and I had to make a couple of visits. One of my visits was seeing somebody in a penthouse. I went from that penthouse to a boarding house. Different socioeconomic situations, but the one thing that was constant is that they needed the best of me. So no matter the circumstances of the residents of Colchester, they are going to get the best of me. And that's what I want to bring to the Board of Finance.
Okay, Sean?
So I think going forward, one of the biggest challenges for us is going to be, again, determining an affordable budget for the town going forward and the Board of Education. And there's a lot of work that goes into that. A lot of it is fact-finding, information finding, and getting the correct answers to bring to the table to have a well-informed budget. From behind the scenes, you know, from the work I've done, you know, being the elected treasurer right now, and from my background of being in information technology and knowing where to find the answers and operating under a trust but verify mindset, you know, that's what I'm bringing to the table. You know, I might not have the answer outright, but I'm going to find the right answer. And when I do, I'm coming prepared to every single meeting. And you know, I work hard, and that's what I'm going to bring.
Great. Okay, Jillian, last word.
Yes. So one of the things, as a financial consultant for the last 20 years, I've specialized in healthcare. I work with employer groups to help them develop their employee benefits packages and make sure that they can stay on budget, but also offer affordable benefits to their employees. I work with a lot of not-for-profits, and so I understand better than anybody about affordability and what people are dealing with. I see it every day with my clients, and so I bring not just that expertise, but that unique perspective of, you know, how can we maintain what we need to maintain, but also while being fiscally responsible, and you know, making sure that we stay on budget with the things that we set forward to do.
Okay, great. So it was great having Krista and Sean and Jillian, because I think I mispronounced your name the first time. I apologize. Jillian, having all three of you, and good luck in your travels, and good luck. When is Election Day?
November 4th.
November 4th. And people can do absentee
Early voting this year as well.
Yes.
Voting as
What?
well.
Early voting
There's
this year
going to
as
be
well,
early
yes.
voting also. And what do we get? 20, 30% of the registered voters voting? We got to raise that up. How are you going to do that? Get more people? Why aren't more people voting in the local elections?
I don't think they know about it.
No,
Well,
and we, you know, when we've been on the doors this year, that's what we've been experiencing. You know,
Get the word out.
We're
yeah.
getting a lot of
Yes.
people saying there's an election this year. So, you know, that's where we come
They
in. That's
haven't
our
figured
job.
out
We have to
it's
get out
every
there.
2 years. It's
No, not
crazy.
yet.
All right. All right, great. Thanks for coming on Talkback. We'll see you next time. We're going to have the candidates for the Board of Education and then the candidates for First Selectman and Selectman in Colchester. Bye.